All right. Well, thank you very much, Marcus. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the governance in Unity Catalog today. Specifically, we're going to be diving into topics of role and attribute-based access control. But before we get to that, oh, that was on the wrong screen. We'll try over here. A little bit about me. I am based in Aalborg in Denmark. I'm not sure why that's not on here. That might have been relevant. I have a background in economics. So I learned to write code the hard way by myself after not having that much experience with it. Since 2018, I've worked first a couple of years in an internal role, working my way backwards from front end tools like Power BI and Target to doing a lot of back end work, and now I feel like I'm starting to move more and more towards drawings and PowerPoint, but I guess that's the circle of life in data. Currently, I have a role in today in Denmark as a consulting manager and an architect. I've been working primarily on Databricks for the last 4 years. Earned myself the title of Databricks champion about last year, and since the fall, I've started writing a lot about features and things that I experienced primarily on LinkedIn, and just recently started a YouTube channel as well. So lots of fun things going around there. And then just a little warning before we get in here, because I have it's quite warm for May in Denmark. So I have my window right open, and just last week I had a client call where my cat decided to chase a bird through the room. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen today. But if a cat suddenly appears out of nowhere, don't be alarmed. It's apparently a completely normal thing. So goals for today. We're going to be diving into a little bit of, I'd rather not call it theory, but we have to get a little bit of a foundation. So role and attribute-based access policies, what are they? Why are they interesting? Why are they something that I think it's worth talking about? Then we're going to be just digging a little into the general governance model of Unity Catalog and Databricks. And then hopefully we're going to be spending about half the time clicking around and demoing how this actually works in practice, sharing some of the experiences I've had with the feature of trying to implement it over the last half year across a couple of different clients. So first things first, role and attribute-based access control. So I think if you've been working in the data world for just about a couple of months, I think we've all been introduced to access control and people wanting access to different things around your platform. And the role-based access is what we see in like a classic implementation, right? You have people who want access to a set of objects. It could be tables, it could be views, it could be whatever. You create some sort of a group in your in Entra or in whatever tool you use. I'm primarily an Azure guy, so I'm just going to stick to Entra. Then you put people in the group, and then you assign rights to that group, right? And that could be anything from allowing them to browse around, or it could be full control. They could be owners of the objects, these kind of things. I think one of the things that this does well is that it's very, very easy to operate, right? It's easy to understand and it's easy to apply. And what it might lack a little bit is the granularity, and I think that's where attribute-based access control comes in and can kind of cover some of those bases. So attribute access control, as the name states, is more about the attributes that you can attest to an object. So in a lot of implementations, you will see this being implemented using tags. That's also something we're going to be diving into today. But an attribute can be pretty much anything. It can be that you have to access from a certain IP address. It can be that you can only see something at a certain time of day. Pretty much anything you can imagine around the object. So just a bit of an overview. So the governing principle of RBAC is groups and roles. So you create groups and you assign different roles and you assign those groups to those roles. On the attribute side is attributes. And I think what the role-based side does really good is it's really easy. It has low complexity, but it also lacks about a lot of scalability and flexibility. And that's where attribute-based access control is better. I'm going to stumble upon those words a lot of times today already. I can feel that. And I think one of the really important things to just mention here is, in my mind, it's not either or. I think in a lot of cases, it's actually where you want to implement ABAC. It's actually going to be a both kind of solutions, right? So I would say role-based access control is amazing for the simple part. So who can see what and what they can do with it. Whereas ABAC is what we sometimes need to use when you need more fine-grained access control. That could be if you're operating within GDPR and you have to mask or do something with sensitive data. It can also be, as I said, related to something along the lines of your networks. All right. So now we've got that covered. Let's just talk a little bit about Unity Catalog. So Unity Catalog is the catalog behind Databricks, and what it gives you that's interesting in at least this perspective we're going to be talking about today is it has the entire access control pane as like a core part of the experience. It's where you can do data discovery and you can click around just like you could if it was a SQL server or whatever you're used to working in. And on top of that, it provides a couple of things that in relation to security and access control is interesting. So it provides all your auditing logs, so you can actually see who accessed what or who tried to access what but got denied because of the access controls you had set up. But it also gives you lineage, both in a tabular format where you can query it, but also in a visual format. And I think when we start to look into how to scale something like this is where lineage actually becomes interesting. But we'll get back to that a little bit later. So the object model is that you have a metastore. You can have one metastore in a tenant. The metastore is like the top level. So Unity Catalog is like the metastore. And then below that, you have the catalogs and schemas. You can even refer to the catalogs internally in Unity Catalog as databases, if that helps people coming from other technologies. So they're databases and schemas. And then in schemas, you have tables, views, functions, stuff like that, that you can control. And I think the main thing that's important to note here is that if you assign permissions at a high level, then they are inherited to the corresponding lower level. So if I grant my finance reader group a select permission on the catalog level, then everything below that they also grant select permissions to. Similarly, if you move to the attribute side, if you put on a policy that is to govern a catalog, then that catalog can apply to everything below. But that's actually possible to control granularly as well. All right. So how do we implement it? I'm gonna breeze through a couple of implementation paths, but there's a lot. We're gonna be looking into the UI based one today. That's what you see here. So basically, you open up an object and you can select principals, and then you can give them specific permissions, easily clickable through the UI. I'm also going to be sharing an example afterwards in code, just so you have it if you want it or want to see how that works. But basically, there's support for a wide variety. That's apparently hard to say, of different implementation paths. So pick your code language. You can implement it pretty much however you want. There is support for Terraform. There's an API you can use. You can also use Python. You can use SQL for it. And I think, oh, that got too far. And I think this gives you a lot of flexibility. But I think one thing that's important to note here is also that if you grant them through code, and if you set things up through code, it's still discoverable through the UI, and you can still revoke it through the UI. So you're not stuck with having to do it one way or the other. I will say though that the ClickUps we're going to be going through today, I wouldn't recommend that for anybody to do in production. Because it is not it is not source control backed, and it's not easy to control. All right. So apparently my mouse keeps sliding to the other screen. There we go. All right. So ABAC. What is it inside of Unity Catalog? So ABAC consists of 3 components. The first one is tags, and tags have existed in Databricks for a long time. But the tags that you need to implement a ABAC are a little different, and they're called governed tags. The main difference here is that a governed tag lives on the account level. So that means that if you implement a governed tag, it basically lives on the, if you remember the object model before, it lives on the metastore level. So when you have to implement these, you have to have a lot more, like you have to have elevated permissions. You have to have permissions on the metastore level, and basically what they are is classic tags. They consist of key value pairs. So you can imagine it being like a PII, for example, could be your tag key, and then you could have different values that then determine what type of PII information it could be. It could be name, social security number, email, phone number, and so on and so forth. So basically, they are the attributes. They describe the attribute that comes with the object. Then we have the functions, and the function is it's a function. It's a user-defined function, UDF. And they decide what happens happens when you query a given set of data. So they are the I guess you could call it like they're the acting part. So the tag is descriptive, and the function is the part that actually gets executed, right? And it can be as simple as a function that just returns false. And that's it. And then based on what happens with the tag, it returns false or not. And you can also, I mean, you can imagine it is just a user-defined function, so you can implement as much logic into it as you want. A little note of caution here is that if you do implement a little too much logic, then I imagine that some of the users that you have in the other end might get a little frustrated with you, because you have to imagine that every time somebody queries this, even if they just preview a couple of rows, you have to execute this function either on a column or on a row level for all the data. So I would say keep it simple. The simpler, the better. I think what I found that works best is basically simple case when or if statements. So just iterating through a list of case when statements, and then having different outputs depending on what attribute you're looking to evaluate. And I think one of the really cool things here is you can evaluate across multiple attributes, right? So you can both evaluate, is this person a member of that group, which is basically role-based permissions, right? But you can also then subsequently say, all right, but if they're not a member of this group, then go and check this tag. So imagine a scenario of a sales department where you have a head of sales who can see everything. So if member belongs to group head of sales or whatever, then everything, and then also you can have then a row filter, row filter. On everybody else, that they maybe only can see their own department or their own region or whatever you want, like a classic row level security scenario. Leads me to the last part, where a function can both be on a row level or on a column level. On a row level, they simply filter out rows that are not evaluating to true. On a column level, it is not like object-based security. So it's masking rules on columns. So you're not physically actually hiding the columns. You're masking whatever data is in there. If you want to, I mean, the best you can do to then hide it is to, I mean, null value all of the column, but you can't actually hide the column itself. People are still going to be able to see the metadata of like the column name, for example. Then there's the last part that ties it all together, which is the policy. So a policy is basically a like an overarching object that ties together your tag or multiple tags with your function. And then it combines that with users, specifically like named users or groups and principals that this should apply to, and a similar set of users that this should not apply to. So what happens behind the scenes is that whenever a user runs a query, then the policy gets what do you call it? It gets it runs. I guess you can just say that. Once it does that, it scans the tags or any other attribute you've set. So I mentioned you could use time of day. I mean, you don't have to put that as a tag on a table, but you could still have a scan to say if it's after 6 o'clock, people are not allowed to see sales. I'm not sure in what scenario you would do that, but you could do it. And then the function get executed. Whatever happens, whatever needs to happen based on the function happens, and then the user gets the result out in the end. All right. So enough talk. Let's get to see some of this in action. There's 4 topics I would like to try and cover. First one is going to be fairly short, but I'm just going to show you how classic role-based access works in Unity Catalog. Then we're going to be diving into the attribute-based part, and we're just going to look at how to actually implement. And then afterwards, we're going to be taking a look at how it then works in practice, both inside of Databricks, but actually also how you can ensure that it works outside of Databricks. So I think one of the really cool things about Unity Catalog is that if you implement your security model in the right way, you can actually have it apply to everybody who's consuming data outside of this of Databricks, and not just for people inside of Databricks. So you can actually have one place where you can have a full governance model. And then afterwards, we're going to be taking a look at some of the kinks and caveats I've stumbled into over the last couple of months of trying to implement this at various places. All right, so I hope you've all done your proper sacrifice to the demo gods, because I am going to be trying to do this the hard way, I guess, with a real life demo, and then we'll see how it goes. If everything goes according to plan, then that's great, and if it doesn't, I have some backup scripts that I can hopefully fire off, and then get us back on track. So let's see how it goes. So I've just opened up a Databricks workspace here. I have my Unity catalog out here on the left. There's a lot of weird stuff in that. Don't take too much notice of that. We're just going to be working inside this catalog called UC demo. Inside of that, I have a schema called sample that I've created with some sample data. There's some customers, some employees, and a user region mapping table. So if we just start here, just so you know what we're looking at. Just going to start up a cluster. Might have been a good idea to do beforehand. Luckily, it's serverless, so it shouldn't take too long. Basically, it's just some stock standard demo data that I've created in a little Python script and put into these tables. On the top here, you can see, oh, there you go. So that's the customers. There's some obviously some sensitive data in here. We're going to be doing something with that later. We have a region over here that we're going to be using for some filtering. On the employee sides, we have even more sensitive data. We have some fake social security numbers in here that we are hoping to get rid of. CPR number is the social security numbers in Denmark. If you don't know, now you know. And then in here, we have a mapping that we're going to be using later for a little bit of demonstration on how these functions work. So I have an additional email here that I'm going to be swapping over to in a minute. So up here we have the permissions pane. And as I said, granting permissions in the UI, fairly simple. Press grant, and then you can give permissions to a certain principal. Right now we're on the table level. If we just go up here on the catalog level and go to permissions and grant, I can give select permissions to all account users. That's just going to what we're going to be using for now. Just gives everybody the access rights that they need to read the data. It automatically then propagates use catalog and use schema. That's because without those, you can actually not select anything further downstream. So if we just confirm that, then we will see. So down here on the customer, that it's propagated a select permission down here, right? And that means that everybody can go and basically run this sample data query, but they can also go to a SQL editor and they can select data. This, however, does not really solve any of the issues that happens in a lot of larger organizations, right? I mean, it's perfectly fine that we can give everybody read access to objects, and we can also give them access to, if you want to, we can also give them access to actually be able to modify the table, or they can manage it so they can delete it themselves. That's all good and fine. But in the scenario where we might want to limit what they can see in a given table, there's basically two ways of going. Sorry, there's a bug in my face. There's basically two ways of going about that. And what we used to have to do was we used to have to create a view that did some pre-filtering on, let's say that certain people were not allowed to see certain data. You could create a view on top that says, all right, let's with a where clause where we filter out some of the data. But that doesn't really scale that well. So let's say we have 5 different sales regions, and they should all see only their own sales. We could create 5 views and give them all permissions on each of them. But we could also go ahead and do something a little more scalable. So that's where our attribute-based access control comes in. So the role-based is really great for simple user setup. Who can see what, who can do what in the platform. We can't really live without it. It's still vital, especially to all of our like analysts and developers and these kind of people. But if we want a little bit more of a fine-grained security, then we're going to be swapping the letter to A here in the beginning, and then we're going to be jumping back in. So, as I mentioned, there are 3 components we need to set up. The first one is the tag, then we have the function, and last but not least, we have the policy. So the tag itself lives on the Metastore level, account level. So we have to get to the Metastore level up here, and then we press govern to get to the govern tags. You will see them here. And just there's a lot of like predefined ones. Some of them are country specific. So you can see they have Brazilian social security numbers and German ones. They don't have the Danish ones in here, unfortunately. I can create one myself. And for this simple demo, we're not going to be needing something that's really that advanced. So what we want is a tag that's called PII. And this should describe whether data is PII identifiable, something like that. And then we can set a set of allowed values. This could be either us setting additional information. So this could be email or name. It could also be a data type mapping. So you could also want to mask PII data differently depending on if it's strings or integers. For now, I'm just going to be putting string here. We can also do an int, and then we can press create. Then for the second part, we want a so that's going to be used for our maskings. And then for the second part, we also want a tag that is related to no, we don't need a tag for that. Sorry, we just want the one tag. For the other part, we're just going to be relying on some of the data in one of the columns. That's my bad. All right, so we have a tag. Then we're going to be creating a couple of functions. And I would highly recommend for that generally you store your functions somewhere else than next to your data. The reason for that is that then you can have separate permissions for them, for people not to be able to do too much with the functions themselves. But now that I've said that, I'm just going to go in here and create them in the same schema anyway, just because then I don't have to create too many schemas. So we can go in here. Where is it? Why can I not create functions? Oh, that's perfect. Does it want to live over here? No. All right. Well, that's a great start. We might do something different then. We might go ahead and just create the policy and then propagate the function from in there, because we can do that. So we're just gonna skip the function part and hop into the policy. So apparently a little more sacrifice should have been made. It is what it is. So we're going to be creating a policy here. We're just going to call it mask PII. Oops, PII. We're going to skip the description. We're going to say that this applies to all account users, so it applies to everybody who tries to do anything in here. We're not going to set any except for. For the scope, we wanted to apply to all schemas in this UC demo. And we basically wanted to look for that tag we had before, right? So we want to say table matching any of these tags. And then we want to find the tag that's called PI. Oops, that was one I too many. And it should say PII string. And then what do we want to happen if somebody comes across one of those columns? So we want it to be a masking function. Columns matching any of these tags. PII string. Oops. Oh. And then we want to create a new function. And you can see in here it actually has a standard masking function for masking with asterisks. Asterisks. I don't know. That might be the name. So create a replace function, return string, return case when value is null, then null, else this, right? But we might want it to do something else as well. So we might want to say, all right, but there are some people who might be allowed to view this. So if we just want to do that, then we can say if value null is null, then null. That's great. When is member, that basically checks the membership of a given group. So if is member, and then I have a group called admins. That's like a built-in group. So we're just going to use that. Then we should return the value. Otherwise, it should mask it, right? So we're going to be checking a column for this tag, and if it has that tag, then we need to apply this function. So actually, on the table side, we don't need to check for the tag. All right, we're going to create this policy. There's a syntax error. That's interesting. Case when value is null, then null. Interesting. We might just cheat and do this. Just want me to press the check syntax button. Is that it? Can't see the bottom of my screen. Is that what's the problem? There we go. All right. So it needs a. Oh, that's because it says val now. Sorry. There we go. Just need to check it again then. Probably does. There we go. All right. Just wait a second. All right, so we have our first policy. We just need to create another one, and for that one, I'm just gonna cheat, and I'm just gonna run a little script instead. So I'm just gonna jump in here, and I'm just gonna create the other one here. So basically, what it does is the same setup you just saw, but instead of creating a masking function, we're creating a row filter function, and it's gonna be checking for the region column. So it's gonna be this one. So it's gonna check for that same admins group first, and then it's gonna be basically looking up that region mapping table that I showed you earlier. It's gonna be looking for the username inside of that, and then it's gonna match it to the current user, and it's gonna check if you're what region you are a member of as a user. So we're just gonna create that. And then create a policy that does that. And then while that propagates, we can jump back here. Because for this to actually work, we need to start setting some tags as well. So while that one executes, we're just going to jump to the employees table here. And then we're basically just going to take a couple of these columns and we're going to add the tag. So here we're going to go and say PAI, and we're going to say string. So the social security number, the CPR number. I guess we could do the email as well. Don't want to get into too many discussions on GDPR rules and what's personal PII. But I mean, this is more for the concept of seeing it work, right? So we've implemented that, and we can see over here on the policy side that this mask PII policy is applied. For some reason, this policy is not applied. Oh yeah. All right. Guess we did need that other tag, or at least I had set it up to have another tag. Where is that? Geo region. Yeah, I guess we can skip that part. There we go. All right. So while that runs, a couple of hiccups, but basically we looked into how we can set up the attribute, the policy, and also the functions with a couple of little caveats there. So now we have all of those free set up in our on our catalog and on our tables. And basically now comes, well, the interesting part. I'm not sure if you find it the interesting part, but I hope you do. But the part where we actually see how it works. So what I've done is I've set up I've set up two different browser tabs. In one of them, I'm logged in with my admin user that I've been using to build the demo, and in the other one, I'm logged in with my secondary user. And the secondary user is the one you've seen me map things to in that region table. And hopefully, it should also have gotten select rights on all of the objects that we created. At least that was the whole point of doing that as well. And now we're just going to be taking a look at how data looks from one side and the other. We're going to be showing a couple of different places of where you can consume the data. First off, we're going to be looking into just regular consumption of the data inside of Unity Catalog, and then we're going to be trying to apply that same pattern to consuming it through a dashboard, an AIBA dashboard inside of Databricks, and also a Genie Space. And those two I have set up in advance because I figured that wasn't really what we were getting into. So first off, if I go to, so right now I'm logged in with my old company email, capacity email. This one is the one we've been doing the demo with. You'll notice that the browser here is I don't know, burgundy, I guess you can call it that. And then for the other one, it's gray, right? So let's just check we got the other policy up and running as well. We did, so that's good. And then it's worth noting that this user here is a member of the admin group. So that means that if I go and look at this employee sample data here, then I should be able to see everything, and I am. If I go to the customers where we're doing this filtering by regions, I should be able to see all of my data across all of my regions, and I am. And if I go to this dashboard where you can see I'm logged in as krjo at capacity.dk, you'll notice that the employee information in here is just also unfiltered, unscrambled, and down here on the graph, I'm seeing. I know this is not the prettiest of dashboards. You'll have to bear with me there. But over here, I'm basically seeing all three regions being available, right? So if we then instead jump to, and I just need to get my pictures in order here. In a second, I need to move this over here. And then, why is that not doing what it's supposed to do? One second. I'm just gonna have to stop sharing, and then I'm getting lost in my tabs here for a second. Where did that go? And then share again. That screen over there. And then, sorry about this. This guy. All right. So you'll see here that the email and the CPR number that we masked, they are actually not being showed here. Completely lost all of my tabs. I can't see my Windows bar. All right, we'll have to do it this with the buttons anyway then. So you'll see here that the masking policy has actually gone through. For some reason, this region filtering down here does not work. And I guess that's what happens with the live demo sometimes. See if we can figure out why it does not work. We go to the employees tab. Yeah, so I forgot to add a tag. So over here, I'm just gonna add a tag. I'm just gonna do this geo region. And I'm just gonna set that on the, no, that was the wrong table. I'm gonna go on the customers here. I'm gonna add the tag that says geo region. Save that on there. Then I'm gonna refresh this, and then I'm gonna pray that it actually works the way it's supposed to. It does not. All right. Anyhow, the cool part was that you were going to be able to see that this was actually filtered to the correct group. Just going to try and cheat a little here and run all this. All right. In the meantime, we can go in here. This is a Genie space, so here I can chat with my data, and I should still be governed by the same rules because everything is in the context of Unity Catalog below. So let's say I wanted to display all information you have about employees. So it's going to be trying to figure out what it can do. Just thinking a little bit. So there's some masking that's going on. I can say show this in table. All right. Did everything just go to shambles now? That's not good. What is going on here? All right. Well, I'm just going to jump back to slide mode here. And then I'm just going to really quickly run a script here to see if everything works the way it's supposed to again. And then hopefully we can get back into the demo in a second. I guess this is what happens, but that doesn't make it any less annoying. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions?
No questions in the chat window.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
better having live
okay.
demos than like having pre-recorded things, right? So
yeah,
still enjoy it.
All right.
So
let's just see if we can get it up and running again here. This Teams parts go away. Nope, still not. All right. Well, it is what it is. Basically, the idea is that the function was supposed to actually only show me the separate region here that I was actually mapped to. That's not a feature downfall. That's just a bad demo. So apologies for that. In terms of how it looks on the other end of the same spectrum, if we go outside of Databricks, and now I've just taken Power BI because I see a lot of people using these two together. On top of my Databricks, I've connected this Power BI report. You can see here I'm logged in with the same user. Important note here: if you want these permissions to actually propagate through, there's two things you need to have set up correctly. First things first is you need to. This is not working either. This is complete shits. That's great. The first thing first is you need to have direct query set up, so that it actually propagates the permissions through from Power BI. The second thing is you need to have the credential pass-through set up on your Power BI gateway, so that way the people authenticate with their own credentials and not through a service principal. So you can see here on the user that has full access in a second, but that's not working either. All right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So there's multiple column masks on the same column. I'm pretty sure there's not that, but let's just try again. You know this. No. All right. No dice. All right. Well, that takes a little bit of the joy out of doing the demo. I'm sorry for that. But basically the idea is that it works the same way on one side of the coin and the other. so that if you set up the permissions correctly, it should work the same way, both internally inside of Databricks, but also towards consumers in other places. All right. So a couple of learnings here, and then one of them is actually what we just stumbled into in the last part of the demo, is that you can have one row filter and one column mask per user. So you can actually apply all the policies you want. The important part here is you can only match one per query. So people can basically only be filtered in one way on either direction. So you can have one row filter and one column mask. You can't dual mask the same column basically, and you can't dual filter the same row. Then ABAC is not supported for views, and that might sound a little confusing for some. Basically, actually, only a few days ago, they changed it. One of the biggest frustrations for me in implementing this, because we had a lot of plans of using views for a lot of things you use views for, displaying data. So the only thing now is you need to actually have all of the policies on the table. So you need to have policies implemented on where data actually resides, and not on the view itself. And then previously we had the issue that the views were being executed on basically by who owned the view and not by who queried the view. But that's been fixed 4 days ago, and it works exactly as you expect it to. So that's nice. Then I mentioned that governed tags requires these elevated permissions. So basically, in order to set governed tags, you need a high level of permissions. So make sure you have that, or make sure you align with people who do. Then on the function side, I mentioned the concept of having all of your functions stored in a separate catalog. I really enjoy this primarily because it allows me to have better governance around the functions. First of all, if you have functions that people can mess with, then they're not really a part of your security layer anymore. Then everybody can go and pick your security layer apart. I think that's not very useful. But it does then require the users to have a permission to execute that set function in order for the policy to execute it on their behalf. Then there's no support for time travel on policy-based data, so that's worth noting. And then the same for delta sharing. So while it applies to a lot of sharing functionalities such as Power BI, the delta sharing functionality does not allow you to pre-filter the data using ABAC on the way out, I guess you can call it that. So getting back to where we started, we got to understand a little bit about what role and attribute-based access policies are. We got to work in practice with data governance in Unity Catalog, and we got to see at least how to apply some of the patterns on how to govern and protect your data. And I mentioned in the beginning the concept of lineage in relation to this, and what I've actually done in a couple of implementations I've done so far of this is actually we've tried to utilize the fact that we have lineage to build policies that we can then roll out based on the lineage. So imagine that you're ingesting some data where you have social security numbers. You then make sure that on the way in, the table that you have them in is tagged before you start writing data to it. That means that as soon as data lands, it's already masked. And then if somebody creates an object on top of that, then the risk is, of course, that they, by writing that same data to a different table, they might be able to somehow break and get access to set data. But by creating a table on top of another table, you infer lineage inside of Unity Catalog. And by that way, you can actually propagate those tags to the next level to ensure that the data stays uncompromised through your layers. So that's a way where you can like couple some of the things together that get provided inside of Unity Catalog to actually make this scale. Yeah. And then last but not least, thanks a lot for the team behind this to organize it. Thanks a lot to Brian, who's been my mentor for sparring. And then to all of you for spending your Friday afternoon listening to me babble and stumble my way through my demo. So thanks a lot. please do reach out and connect if you want to. I've put this little notebook I've done on the demo. Well, I promise you it actually works if you do it in code and not in the UI. But anyhow, I've put a link here where you can access that notebook, both to generate the synthetic test data, but also actually to set everything up around it. Be aware that you probably need some elevated permissions to set it up. If you like me do a lot of your work in Databricks free, then be aware that the concept of connecting your Databricks free to Power BI is a little different because Databricks free resides on AWS. So that credential pass-through that you actually need to have this working in Power BI, that doesn't really work the way you think it does. I had a little bit of struggle with that last week. So that's why I was swapped to a different workspace. Yeah. But anyhow, that was I think, yeah, that was all for me. Thank you so much for listening in. And if anybody has some questions, then I think we have a little bit of time left still.